What if the most powerful queer love stories in Asia weren't hidden but played out on screen in Taiwan? In 2019, Taiwan became the first Asian country to legalize same-sex marriage. But way before that, its BL dramas were already breaking barriers. These on-screen couples didn't just act, they made us feel. From secret glances to life-changing confessions, they turned simple moments into milestones for LGBTQ+ visibility. Which Taiwanese couple left the biggest mark on you? Chang, Jia-han and Birdy in Your Name Engraved Herein, 2020. At an all-boys Catholic school in 1980s Taiwan, the last thing Jia-han expected to find was freedom, and yet there he was, pressed into his uniform, whispering prayers in chapel, when Birdy walked in like a beautiful contradiction, carefree, rebellious, all teenage smirks and chaotic hair. Jia-han didn't fall in love. He collided with it. There were no love songs for boys like them, just curfews, discipline, and a country too scared to say the word gay out loud. But in between choir practices and forbidden swims, they carved out a private language, one made of glances, silent touches, and late-night bike rides that screamed everything they couldn't say. It wasn't loud, but it was loud enough for their hearts to hear. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most dangerous thing of all, falling in love with your best friend, when the world around you says it's impossible. Jia-han wanted clarity. Birdy gave him confusion wrapped in longing. One moment, they were inseparable, sharing laughter, milk tea, and cassette tapes. The next, Birdy was avoiding eye contact like it was a weapon. But love, especially the kind you're not allowed to name, doesn't play by straight rules. And then came that kiss. Unexpected, unspoken. One soft second that rewrote their whole universe and left it in shambles. Birdy pulled away, not because he didn't feel it, but because he did. In a world where loving another boy could ruin your future, what could two scared teenagers do? They didn't just struggle against society. They struggled with themselves, with guilt, with faith, with fear of being left behind. Still, every stolen moment felt holy, like the universe gave them just enough oxygen to breathe, before tightening the noose again. Years passed, haircuts changed, laws changed, even Taiwan changed. But some names, they stay engraved, not just on desks or photographs, but deep inside your chest, like a melody you forgot you knew. When Jia-han and Birdy met again as grown men, there was no more hiding, just two souls carrying the weight of what could have been, what should have been, and what still lingered. Because some first loves never die, they just evolve. And that's the heart of this story. It's not a tragedy, it's a testament. A reminder that queer love, no matter how quiet, leaves echoes that last forever. And if you're lucky, someday, you get to say their name out loud. So tell us, what part of their love story spoke to you? Drop your thoughts below, because in this space, all love is sacred. All names deserve to be remembered. Tang and Meng Xiao in History 3 Trapped, 2019. Tang was supposed to be dangerous, a mafia boss with cold eyes, smooth suits, and the kind of past you don't ask about unless you're ready to disappear. But then came Meng Xiao, a hot-headed cop with more passion than patience, who didn't just break the rules, he stormed right through them with sirens blaring. They weren't supposed to fall in love. One was the law, the other the lawless. But fate doesn't care about roles. It cares about timing, about sparks, about that one moment in a rain-soaked alley when a gun slips and a heart skips. And just like that, a criminal and a cop started dancing around something far more dangerous than bullets: feelings. At first, they couldn't stand each other. Xiao barked orders. Tang rolled his eyes. It was cat and mouse with handcuffs. But beneath the teasing, the chasing, the almost kisses, and stubborn pride, something bloomed. Trust didn't arrive wrapped in a bow. It was bruised, battered, built slowly, painfully, beautifully. They argued like lovers before they even knew they were falling. And when they finally did, when the walls crumbled and the truth spilled out, it wasn't explosive. It was quiet, like a confession you whisper in the dark, afraid the world might break it if you say it too loud. Because real love doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it walks in like a thief, and suddenly you're not scared of being caught. You're scared of being alone. What makes their story unforgettable isn't the action, it's the affection. A mafia boss who learns to be vulnerable. A cop who learns to listen with his heart. Two men from opposite worlds, rewriting their own rules for love. In a society that often tells same-sex love to stay silent, Tang and Shao shouted with their eyes, their touch, their unwavering loyalty. They didn't just survive together, they chose each other, again and again, when it would have been easier to walk away. This isn't just a BL drama, it's a reminder that love doesn't care about gender, titles, or the past. It only asks one thing, that we're brave enough to feel it. Would you risk everything for the one person who makes your world feel real? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's celebrate a love story that broke barriers and captured hearts across the globe. Shang Ting and Gu in History 3. Make Our Days Count. 2019. If love were a storm, Shang Ting would be the thunder, loud, impulsive, and completely unaware of the calm he was about to crash into. Gu, on the other hand, the kind of boy who knew how to disappear in a crowd, who treated emotions like math problems, manageable if you didn't let them get messy. So naturally, fate did what fate does best. It threw them into the same classroom, gave them the same air to breathe, and waited for sparks. At first, it was chaos. Ting was all noise, crashing through life with charm and zero self-awareness. Gu, he was unimpressed, focused on survival, not romance. But somewhere between the tutoring sessions, late-night texts, and accidental shoulder bumps, something shifted. Not suddenly, not loudly, just enough for Gu to look up and realize someone was waiting, someone who refused to give up. Their relationship didn't unfold like a typical BL fantasy. It wasn't fireworks and first kisses under cherry blossoms. It was messy, beautiful, real. Ting had to learn that love isn't about chasing. It's about staying, about listening when the other person is too tired to speak, about choosing someone every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And for Gu, loving Ting meant trusting someone with parts of himself he'd buried long ago. Grief, loneliness, fear of being left behind. He carried it all like a second skin. But with Ting, he learned that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the doorway to connection. Together, they didn't just fall in love. They grew in love. Built a world where a boy who used to hide could finally feel seen. Make Our Days Count wasn't just a title. It was a warning. A whisper that time isn't promised. That some love stories don't end in happily ever after, but that doesn't make them any less powerful. Ting and Gu reminded us that queer love isn't always soft or simple. Sometimes it breaks you, but it also rebuilds you. Brighter, freer, more alive. Their story isn't about perfection. It's about presence, about how two very different boys taught each other to live, not for someday, but for now. For this second. For the heartbeat between chaos and calm. And maybe that's the lesson we're left with. Love doesn't have to last forever to mean everything. It just has to be real. Shi-de and Sheng in History 2, Right or Wrong, 2018. Let's be honest, when you think of a single dad, college professor, and forensic expert, your first thought probably isn't BL heartthrob. But then came Shi-de. Reserved, brilliant, and emotionally frozen. Life had handed him more responsibilities than romance, and love? It was a puzzle he didn't have time to solve. That is, until Sheng showed up. A student, younger, hot-headed, and everything Shi-de wasn't. Their first meetings? More like emotional wrestling matches. Sparks flew, but not the romantic kind, until one day, the silence cracked. The professor who once saw the world in black and white suddenly started noticing shades of warm, impossible gray. This wasn't just a love story. It was a boundary breaker. A professor and a student, a single dad and a 20-something still finding his path. It wasn't supposed to work. But maybe that's what made it so powerful. Sheng didn't fall in love with perfection. He fell in love with a man who struggled to balance his heart with his head. And Shi-de? He learned that sometimes love doesn't arrive in neat academic footnotes. Sometimes it's messy, terrifying, and worth everything. One became the anchor, the other the spark. Together, they built a home not defined by blood, but by choice. And when the little girl they cared for began calling them both family, it wasn't cute, it was revolutionary. Because queer love can raise children, queer love can nurture. And queer love, when chosen freely, can be stronger than any tradition. Their story reminded us that love doesn't need to be loud to be brave. It doesn't need fireworks to be true. Sometimes, it's in the quiet moments. Making breakfast, watching a child fall asleep, holding each other when no one's watching. Shi-de and Sheng weren't just a couple. They were proof that even the most unlikely hearts can find rhythm. And for anyone who's ever questioned whether they were worthy of love later in life, this was the answer. But just when you thought history couldn't outdo itself, it gave us a couple that turned the volleyball court into a battlefield for hearts. Next up, Xiao and Xuan, where teenage rivalry meets unspoken desire, in History 2 Crossing the Line. Xiao and Xuan in History 2 Crossing the Line, 2018. Xiao lived like a warning label, bold, loud, and constantly towing the line. Coaches tolerated him, teammates admired him, but no one really knew him. That is, until Xuan entered the gym, not as a player, but as the new assistant coach with calm eyes and zero interest in high school drama. Chu wasn't impressed by Yuhao's swagger or his spikes. He had no time for ego, only discipline. At first, Yuhao hated that, resisted it, mocked it. But deep down, he noticed something rare. Chu didn't flinch around him. He listened, he corrected, he cared. And for a boy who'd spent years building walls out of sarcasm and sweat, that was disarming in all the worst and best ways. It wasn't romance at first, it was tension, quiet, confusing, undeniable. A water bottle passed a second too slowly, a bandage wrapped a little too gently, the kind of closeness that doesn't say I love you, but whispers I see you. Somewhere between late-night practices and sideline pep talks, something changed. Yuhao wasn't just training harder, he was softening, slowly, nervously, beautifully. And Chu? He wasn't immune either. Behind his professional calm was a man rediscovering how it feels to want someone, not out of impulse but out of admiration. There was fear, of course, rules, boundaries, the unspoken, this can't happen. But feelings don't check rulebooks before they show up. They crash in, uninvited and irreversible. Their story wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. In a world that still treats same-sex love like a secret, what they shared was revolutionary in its quiet defiance. Two souls who met in a gym, found comfort in each other's chaos, and chose to hold on, despite the noise, despite the stares, despite the stakes. They didn't fall in love because it was easy. They did it because it was real. And real love? It's never just about butterflies. It's about showing up, staying close, and choosing someone even when the world doesn't give you permission. So if you ever wondered what courage looks like, it's two boys standing still in the middle of a storm and choosing each other anyway, because love like this deserves to be seen and remembered. Zhen and Shi-de in Beloved in House I Do, 2021. Zhen the office like a perfectly tuned machine, efficient, polished, emotionally frozen. He believed in deadlines, dress codes, and a strict no dating at work rule. But the moment Shi-de walked through that door, with a backpack slung over one shoulder and a smile that defied corporate gravity, something in Zhen cracked. Maybe it was the way Shi-de challenged every rule with effortless charm. Maybe it was how he brewed his coffee like it was a love language. Whatever it was, the office climate shifted. Ray's icy walls started to melt, one stolen glance at a time. Shi-de, of course, had no intention of falling for his boss. He was just trying to survive the chaos of a new job. But Zhen's guarded eyes held stories Shi-de couldn't help but want to read. And so began the slowest, softest corporate romance Taiwan never saw coming. Filled with coffee breaks that lingered too long, hallway collisions that felt scripted, and heartbeats louder than typing sounds. At first, Shi-de resisted. Love wasn't in his 5-year plan. Zhen was too bold, too bright, too dangerous to the carefully curated world Shi-de built to hide his past heartbreak. But emotions don't file themselves neatly into spreadsheets. And soon, the tension between them stopped being something they avoided and became something they couldn't live without. Their moments were small but powerful. A late-night conversation over takeout, a rain-soaked bike ride home, a bandaged hand, a held gaze. Zhen didn't storm into Shi-de life. He unpacked slowly, with kindness, and Shi-de, against all instincts, let him in. Not with grand speeches, but with quiet acceptance. For a man who once shut the world out, loving Zhen was the bravest, most human thing he'd ever done. Beloved in House wasn't just a BL drama. It was a warm, witty rebellion against silence. It showed that same-sex love doesn't have to be dramatic to be revolutionary. It can be gentle, professional, grown-up. It can unfold over board meetings, not just bedsheets. And Shi-de and Zhen, they didn't just fall in love. They built a life, one where hand-holding was political, and every kiss was a quiet declaration. We exist. We matter. In the end, their I do wasn't just a wedding vow. It was a promise to keep loving out loud, even in a world still catching up. Shi-de and Zhen reminded us that the most powerful romances don't ask for permission, they just happen. And when they do, they make even the coldest offices feel like home. Cheng and Teng in History 4, Close to You, 2021. Cheng didn't believe in limits, especially not emotional ones. Charming, confident, and allergic to subtlety, he was the kind of guy who walked into a room and made the wallpaper blush. A successful boss with a cheeky smile and an even cheekier sense of timing, he could sell ice to a penguin. But love, real, awkward, terrifying love, that wasn't on his schedule. Enter Teng, his assistant, his opposite, and the walking embodiment of emotional lockdown. Reserved, predictable, entirely too organized for Xiao's messy heart. But here's the twist. Cheng didn't fall in love with Muren's smile or style. He fell for the quiet loyalty, the small gestures, the way Muren showed up, even when he didn't have to. Their relationship didn't unfold like a fairy tale. It simmered like an accidental love confession over reheated leftovers. Muren, stuck between admiration and fear, kept his distance like a man guarding state secrets. And Cheng, he played it cool until he didn't. The tension wasn't just romantic, it was relatable, because who hasn't crushed on someone too scared to love them back? Their story is full of missed signals, unspoken truths, and that one rooftop scene that made every viewer yell, "Just kiss already." But beneath the slow burn and office drama was something deeper. It wasn't about conquering each other's hearts. It was about learning to stand beside someone and letting your guard down without losing your dignity. When the walls finally crumbled, they didn't shatter with fireworks. They cracked open gently, like a heart learning how to trust again. Watching Muren choose vulnerability over safety and Cheng choose patience over pride was nothing short of magic. Together, they didn't rewrite the rules of love. They just proved that queer love doesn't need permission to exist. It only needs honesty, respect, and a little bit of courage. Their story reminds us that love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, awkward, slow, and exactly what we needed all along. So next time someone says same-sex love is too complicated, tell them about Cheng and Muren. And maybe they'll see that love, real love, is complicated for all of us, straight or not. Wang and Jiang Tian in the Oni 1, 2024. At first glance, the Oni 1, 24 feels like your classic high school clash. Wang, the easygoing transfer student with a quiet heart, steps into a world ruled by Tian, the aloof top student with a stare that could freeze fire. Their first interactions? Ice cold. Silent glares, petty power plays, a war over who sits by the window. But what no one expected, not even themselves, was how the tension would twist into tenderness and how disdain would bloom into desire. Living under the same roof didn't just force them to coexist. It forced them to feel, and feel they did. In glances that lingered too long, in arguments that hid affection, and in every unspoken moment that screamed louder than words. What makes Wang and Tian's love story different isn't just that they're two boys. It's that the show never treats their love as something shocking. It treats it as something real. Their chemistry simmers slowly. built not on grand romantic gestures but on quiet care. Tian, once cold and guarded, softens in ways even he doesn't understand. Wang, once unsure of where he belonged, finds his anchor in the most unexpected place. Jiang's unwavering presence. Their love isn't clean, it's messy, it's hesitant, but that's exactly what makes it beautiful. It mirrors the uncertainty many queer youth feel. And yet it shows, love doesn't have to be loud to be revolutionary. Sometimes, it's a shared umbrella, a bandaged wound, a stolen glance in a crowded hallway. In a media landscape where same-sex love is too often sidelined or sensationalized, the only one dares to just let it be. Wang and Tian's story reminds us that queer love doesn't need tragedy to be valid. It only needs honesty. And this drama gives us that in spades. The softness of their connection, the growth they spark in each other. The way they make us believe that even in the confusion of youth, love can still be something steady. Something worth choosing. By the final episode, you're not just rooting for a couple, you're rooting for every queer teen who's ever felt unseen. Because if Tian, the stoic top of the class, can melt for Wang, then maybe, just maybe, the world can soften too. Damian and Jerry in Papa and Daddy, 2021. In the heart of Taipei's modern chaos, where coffee shops outnumber confession booths and parenting is rarely romanticized, something quietly radical happened. Damian, a successful restaurateur and single gay dad, met Jerry, a handsome, warm-hearted YouTuber who never thought diapers and lullabies would come before date nights and dance floors. Their worlds couldn't have been more different. Damian was grounded, responsible, maybe a little too serious for his own good. Jerry was a whirlwind of curiosity, laughter, and the kind of energy you don't schedule, you surrender to it. And yet, when they met, the world tilted. Not in some explosive Hollywood kind of way, but in a soft, undeniable shift. They didn't fall in love, they grew into it. Over bedtime routines, clumsy breakfasts, and those quiet, awkward moments when you realize you're not just dating a man, you're stepping into a family. What made Damian and Jerry's story so real wasn't just the chemistry, it was the complications. Co-parenting, exes, cultural expectations, and oh yes, social media trolls who think two dads are somehow less than one mom. But instead of shrinking under the weight of it all, they leaned in. There were tears, missteps, one unforgettable argument in a kitchen over whether tofu counts as real protein. But in between the chaos, there was also hand-holding at 2 a.m. There was laughter echoing off baby monitors. There was a moment, just one, when Jerry looked at Damian and whispered, "You make me want to be the kind of man I never thought I could be." And that's the thing about love. It doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives with a baby bottle in one hand and a second chance in the other. In a society still catching up to the idea that love doesn't need to look traditional to be true, Damian and Jerry gave us something priceless. Visibility with heart. They weren't perfect, but they were present. And that's what made their story unforgettable. Papa and Daddy isn't just a drama, it's a declaration that queer love can be nurturing, joyful, and deeply human. That two men can raise a child, build a home, and still flirt across a sink full of dishes. So here's to the mess, the beauty, the bravery, and to Damian and Jerry for proving that family isn't defined by blood or tradition. It's defined by love, commitment, and choosing each other, over and over again. Shi-de and Shu-yi in We Best Love, 2021. Shu-yi and Shi-de were the classic school rivals, sharp minds, sharper tongues, always chasing first place like their lives depended on it. But if you looked a little closer, the tension wasn't just academic. It buzzed, it lingered, it meant something. Shi-de didn't just compete with Shu-yi, he watched him. He remembered his smallest gestures. He cared in a way Shu-yi couldn't, or wouldn't, understand. And maybe that's the twist. Sometimes the fiercest rivals are really just two hearts trying not to fall too hard, too fast, too soon. And let's be honest, Shu-yi was the last to know. While Gao silently carried years of love under that cool, calculating exterior, Shu-yi was busy running away from the truth. Literally. Changing schools, changing cities, But you can't outrun someone who's chasing you with a heart wide open and no backup plan. Gao wasn't just waiting, he was believing. In love, in fate, in them. There's something painfully beautiful about loving someone who isn't ready to love you back. Gao Shi-de played the long game, not with manipulation but with patience. He never forced Shu-yi to change. He simply stayed, showed up again and again in all the small moments that build a life. A cup of coffee, a hand that lingers a second too long, a glance that says, "I see you," even when words can't. And Shu-yi, he crumbled slowly, beautifully, like all great love stories demand. His anger wasn't about Gao, it was about fear. Fear of being known, of being vulnerable, of being loved in a world that still whispers, "not normal." But Gao never treated their love like a secret. He wore it in his eyes. And when the dam finally broke, when Shu-yi let himself be loved, it wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, real, and that made it earth-shattering. It was about two boys redefining what it means to win. Gao Shi-de didn't need Zhou Shu-yi's approval. He needed his heart, and he earned it the hard way. With patience, with respect, with love that never asked to be returned immediately, but trusted it would be someday. Their story reminded us, queer love doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. It doesn't have to be perfect to be worth it. It just has to be real. And in We Best Love, it was real in every stolen glance, every fight that hid a confession, every tear that finally meant, "I'm not running anymore." And if you've ever loved someone who didn't love you back yet, you already know how this feels. In every scene, these couples dared to show what too many still hide, that same-sex love is just love. No less pure, no less powerful, no less worth fighting for. Their stories didn't just warm our hearts, they cracked open a door to visibility, to empathy, to a future where queer love isn't questioned, it's celebrated. This video isn't just about drama, it's about dignity. And it's a reminder that every time we see two people choose each other without shame, we move a little closer to the world we all deserve. So, don't stop here, subscribe, turn on the bell, and stand with us. And on this channel, love always leads.